Hello, what's going on, guys? Give me just 5 seconds here so I can pull up my jank, get things ready to go. I found out, I was rewatching the last live stream, and while I was watching it, I realized that as I tend to work in ZBrush, let me pull this mic closer. Like, over the period of a few hours, I just sink lower and lower into my chair. And I used to work with a guy, and I would come in the morning, and he would be so low in his chair that if you were like looking from the back, like the back side, he'd be below the back of his chair so far that you couldn't even tell that he was there sometimes. But yeah, we're gonna be working back on our bear boy here, and working on his armor a bit more. But let's see here. So stream health live, good, green, good to go. HUD boy is already in here saying, hey, what's going on, man? Glad you can make it. Pop in real quick. Hopefully you don't have to go too soon like last time, and it's no worries if you do. But let me pull up my reference here. If anybody is new joining us today, here's some armor that I'm referencing as I'm working on this bear boy here. In particular, I've been looking at this one most recently, so today, it's cold and I'm tired. That's what today is. But we're going to be detailing out this armor a bit more, so that's the plan. No work today. I'm in the stream till the end. That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. I'm glad to hear it. It's rare that we get to hang out with the HUD boy. So, all right. So here's the plan. Like I said, detail this out. I was talking last time about bringing the eyes up in visual interest. So top to bottom design, essentially focus at the top, and essentially like an upside down pyramid, maybe? I don't know. There should be more to see at the top of the character, and visual interest should decline as it goes more near the feet down here. So that's why I've kind of just got these blocked out as little stumps. He's a little bit off balance as well. I was looking at this, but I think we'll correct that when we go into pose and everything. It looks like he could fall backwards any second. But so let's bring the visual interest up. Let's add some more form, secondary and tertiary detail, more towards the top of the character. We'll work on the helmet a little. I was looking at some of this. I think these are maybe a little too exaggerated. You guys know I like to push stuff really far and then say oops and push it back. So we can probably take a look at these and some other stuff as we go through here. So let's just have another chill stream. Feel free to ask questions for people that are popping in and hanging out. And yeah, that's the whole plan. Continue working on our grizzly boy and see what we can come up with. Have some more fun there. So we're talking about bringing visual interest up more towards the face, and it's kind of one of the main reasons I haven't added any color quite yet. It's because I want to just sculpturally be able to look at this. Color will help as well, but just from a strictly form standpoint, how can I like just looking at this, there's I've worked on these pads most recently. I did these off of stream, and you can see that these kind of bring your eye too much to focus. So let's try to find ways that we can move this up. So just looking at my reference, seeing what kind of armor detail we have. I would like to add possibly some panels to this, similarly to what I did below. It's a pretty simple piece. This one, the geometry is a little screwed up on. So this is going to be a little tough to work with on the side pieces. So whatever I do to this front one, I want to make sure that I can replicate it over there, just to kind of have that continual detail. Let's change our quick save preferences real quick. just so we don't have to deal with that quite so often. We're dealing with a medium-ish size file at 20 million polys. It should get bigger though. We'll try to keep it under 30 just for the help of the stream and everything else. So these are fine. This panel here, I'm good with this. I think I even subdivided it, just saying that I was like ready to move on with that piece. But I would like to add some rope structure connecting these panels down here. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to use an insert multi-mesh primitive, if I can find the right key, because I can't see it. And we're going to fake some rope. And we're just going to fake some rope with a sphere. Pretty simple. We could also use that little pill insert that we got, but this should work just fine. So essentially, faking rope. I could use a tube, but you're only ever going to see this from one angle. So why not just attempt to fake it? And I can kind of pull some of this back. I can like mask this and do a little pull back. That might look really dirty. That's because it is. We'll correct it though. We'll play with it, fix it up. Try to clean it up, see what we can come up with. So we have this from hardened bamboo. I think they do some kind of cooking process to like, or steaming, something they do to harden the bamboo, and then they use a lot of leather as well. And it looks like in this this one in particular they have some metal to some screws or bolts or pins or whatever you would call these to kind of hold it all together. Craig says, got no notification. Oh no, I posted on, don't worry, I literally just started the stream, so you didn't miss anything yet. But yeah, I don't know how that works actually. So if you have to like turn on notifications on your YouTube settings or what, but yeah, like I said, I don't know. Try that. Try to click the bell thing. I thought if you were subscribed to someone, it like let you know if they went live, but honestly, I have no idea. I am not a master of the YouTubes. So let's get some rope, or at least some fake rope, right? This is going to have to be a pretty high Dynamesh res just to get that to kind of carry through. Let's do a slice. Well, wait, let's do a slice on the left side. Always, if you're going to do a slice, do it on the positive side of the axes, because you can see that slices do not go across your symmetry plane. So what ends up happening is now I can just mirror and weld, and it goes from the positive to the negative axis without any real problems. So then I can just kind of tweak this a little bit and ZBrush it really low, and I should get, we might have to inflate it a little bit, might be a little bit too flat. Let's ZBrush again. Had a little bit of a crack there, a little bit of a crevasse. Let's scoot these together and inflate them, like I said. Deformation down in your tool palette, of course. Inflate, not nearly that much. I think that looks good. Let's see. YouTube changes shit. It used to be that way when they messed it up, so you do in fact need to hit the bell icon to get notified. Yeah, I feel like if I don't know, I feel like if I subscribe to someone, I'm pretty much saying let me know when you release new stuff or do something. I don't know, that doesn't really make much sense to me. It's like you have to double subscribe to someone. or maybe they're just like in a transitionary period between figuring out the streaming service. YouTube is somewhat still new to streaming, and they pretty much consider it only gaming. ZBrush is kind of like a game, I always say. So I think that looks good enough for the block out of our rope. But like I said, I kind of want to do, so see these panels down here for these pieces? These are separate geometrical pieces for each polygroup. I kind of want to do the same thing here, because this armor needs to be, I don't know if it needs to be flexible for the belly area. I'm trying to think about like how this would actually work, because some of the pieces that I'm looking at, so like this one, it's all a solid piece, right? This one, I can't really tell if it's a solid piece or not just by looking at it. This one, it's kind of hard to tell, but I can see the cracks, and I know that these fold and change shape, and which is why they're tied together so intricately. Same with this one here. I think that's all a solid piece. So let's keep that way, but let's also get some more visual interest in here. With it's, I would almost call this like somewhere between adding visual interest and not, simply because it's a repetitive shape, but it is some detail. So let's do this, but let's not split the geometry, just because of the simple fact I'm not sure if it's necessary, as well as it's going to create some problems on these side pieces. So I'm going to hide the arms here, and the belly's fine. Yeah, that's good. Alright, so I'm just going to hide that so I can start adding this detail all the way across and make some repetitive pieces here. YouTube disagrees with us. They're dumb. YouTube changes stuff all the time without like letting people know what the heck's going on. Hey Folly, do you plan to make a video about fiber mesh concerning hair sculpting or similar? Possibly. There's a lot of really good tutorials though online already for how fiber mesh works. So even just like on YouTube, I work more sculpturally, so I don't use fiber mesh very often, but that's not to say that I haven't used fiber mesh in the past. I am more of a fan of creating sculptural hair, as most of my work is not game or film ready, but more just sculptural detail. So like my experience is more so with creating stuff for toys and creating stuff for museums and amusement parks, like life-size figures, that kind of stuff. So that work didn't really require fiber mesh. And I'm not a huge fan of fiber mesh. The only thing that I think fiber mesh is really good for, unless you're really good at using fiber mesh, is taking the time with fiber mesh to create your basic hair, and then come down into fiber mesh and your export, where is it? Export your curves, but you have to set your, I believe it's your, there is a slider in here that essentially decreases, it might be this previs slider. It essentially decreases the number of curves that you export, and then you take that into something like Maya or Max or whatever software that you're using, and then you can work with those curves and edit them more from there. And those softwares can be a little bit more friendly for working with that kind of stuff. But again, you can kind of create those curves directly in that software as well, so I'm not sure how useful that is at the end of the day. It's always nice to have some kind of tool that you can have in ZBrush where you don't have to leave, I think. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's all dependent on what you want to work with. So there's, like I said, there's a lot of good stuff online already, but I don't know. We'll see. No fiber mesh tutorials on the horizon quite yet, though. So let's mirror and weld. I was rotating that in a way, if you saw what I did. I essentially got the center point of the other geometry so that I could get that exact middle point and rotate it along that axis. It helped me to kind of center that a little bit better. So just a little trick there. Essentially, I'm just trying to make this, and maybe I have this backwards. It doesn't matter. Essentially, I'm just trying to make this look like it's threaded through the armor, and we might add some sculpture. We'll get there. We'll get there all in time. I like to, whoops, I like to, come on, rotate please. I like to add the part like this first before doing anything with that, where it's going to interact. So essentially what I'm saying is, if you're going to put a hole in a sheet of metal with a screw in it, I would line up the screw first before I put the hole in the metal or something like that. Okay. And then I'm gonna merge these two together, and then I'm gonna replicate this along this curve. And I could try to do that with array mesh, but I think this is such a non-uniform curve that that's not really gonna be possible. Maybe we could try it. I think it would be a waste of time though. Let's see here. Alright, so I think we want to duplicate this. Turn off our X symmetry, shift it to the side, and we'll go to about here. Click that little white circle so you can, whoops, get that center point. Rotate along that axis. Let's see here. I think that looks pretty close. Shift that into position. It's going to require some tweaking as this curves along the body. Has a little bit of a different angle there. Oh yeah, we even lost some of that. So the angle of the body isn't uniform as well. Did that not, that piece, how did that happen? Is that mask? Okay, so sometimes stuff can be that just wasn't telling me that they were, and it's just a little bug. You can make it so that the stuff that you mask isn't visible as a mask, like directly, but I don't know why the heck you would ever do that or want that. But it is a feature. But that's just a bug. Pretty annoying one. I think I had an issue yesterday. I was trying to do some operation. So like one of the ways you can find out is try to dynamesh the piece, and we'll say, ooh, you got something masked. Can't do that, sorry. So that's like one telltale sign. But it's not nice. It's annoying. Alright, so now we can mirror and weld that. I can apply a dynamic smooth to this. Let's just get a really big move brush. And try to line these up a little bit better. So again, we're doing this high-res detail that is supposed to be repetitive. We do want this to be a repetitive pattern. Similarly to down here. So we do want some high-res detail, but we want it to essentially be repetitive noise to the point where you look at this and your brain immediately understands the pattern and becomes bored with it. So you move on. There's a great talk talking about just ways that you can use secondary and tertiary forms, as well as primary forms, to kind of lead the eye. It's a recent Blender talk that I saw, but yeah, it's very, very informative. Whoops. That's not what we want. We'll just delete that. No worries. But yeah, just thinking about all this stuff, how you're going to lead the eye, where you want the person's focus to be, which is normally the character's face, normally. But very good to keep all this in mind, as well as, you know, I think one of the most important things, that the why. Why are you doing a thing? So this, I'm creating repetitive detail here, but these serve a purpose as well. These help tie together this armor. These all this rope, this isn't here just for show, and it is beautiful, right? But it does serve a purpose of kind of connecting all that together. So definitely think about that. That's, like I said, the why is very important. I want to make a video here soon, kind of talking about the parts height, for example, and how seeing things the correct way, how seeing a thing for what it truly is a skill that you have to develop over time, as well as your own personal mental library and understanding of things. There's a really good example of a school that asked its, well, it was, I think, part of an entrance exam, and part of the exam that, like, all the students, like, came in. This is a pretty famous story, and I'm probably gonna butcher it, but the guy essentially says, the teacher, he says, okay, for your exam, all you have to do is draw an ant. Okay, all you have to do is draw an ant, and everybody has a pencil and a piece of paper on their desk, and he says, okay, you have 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. It doesn't really matter. And then he says, go ahead and just draw an ant. You're not allowed to look up any references. Blah blah blah. Go. So everybody ends up, you know, drawing their ant, and some people have their ant drawn really simply. It's just like 3 circles. Body, abdomen, thorax, whatever, three segments, and 6 legs, and some antenna. And that's enough. But depending on how you position those things, it can say a lot about what you understand about the anatomy and structure of an actual ant. So for example, some people would draw a pair of legs coming out of between the first 2 segments, or maybe coming off of the first segment, which is the head, which is just completely wrong. Or they would have some legs in the abdomen, as well as some legs coming out of the last segment, which is obviously wrong. All the legs connect to that middle segment of the ant. And just kind of like understanding this very basic thing. It's like, yes, we've all looked at an ant, right? But have you, like, actually, and I think I got this from Mark Brené, what he calls your mental library, your kind of just library of references for yourself, and understanding is a huge portion of that. So that's just kind of one of the examples. So I would like to, I think it would be interesting to make a video talking about some of that stuff. I think another, you know, fundamental that a lot of people forget about is time. I think it's kind of stupid and noobish to ask, like, oh, how long did that take? And maybe you're genuinely curious, but what you're really asking there, what a lot of people are really asking there most of the time, is how long did that, like, how long did that actually take you to make? And I want to kind of reference that to myself as well as other artists, but you know, what people really don't see, if you were to answer that question, like, say, I say this character took 40 hours, right, to get to this point, which it didn't, but if I were to say that, they'd say, okay, 40 hours, could I do that in 40 hours? Who else does that in 40 hours? But what people don't consider is, like, the multiple years before that took place to give you the skills and abilities to create that thing in 40 hours. So it's not just 40 hours, it's 40 hours plus 5-10 years or of art. But yeah. But yeah, we'll keep working on our bear here. We'll talk more about what we're doing. I'm just kind of... These got a little out of whack here with that rotation. Gotta be careful with my masking. But yeah, we can continue. I am a very bad talker plus sculptor at the same time. I've been talking my whole life, so you know, I thought I would be decent at it. Turns out it's very, very hard to say words and also do the ZBrush at the same time. I had a guy recently ask, I don't think it was on the last stream, I think it might have been the one before that. He was like, why don't you use the 3D gizmo? I'm like, I don't know, man. The transpose tool's amazing. I love the transpose tool. It's great. Like, I can just do all this stuff so quickly, and I think quickly. I don't know. Maybe I'm stuck in my old ways, but I've had 3D gizmos longer than I've had the transpose tool in other programs, and I wish that the transpose tool existed in other programs. There's just a lot of really cool stuff that you can do with it, and I like it for that. Might have to tweak some of this just to make some stuff fit, but we'll figure it out. Like with the transpose tool, you can also do this with the 3D gizmo, but just control, click, and dragging on something, as long as it doesn't have subdivision levels, you can duplicate that piece, which is very nice for quick positioning, like what I'm doing right now. All right. What do you guys think? How do you guys feel about the transpose tool? I would guess that most of you, when you saw the 3D gizmo, were very, very relieved. I know a lot of people were. Personally, I couldn't have one of these operations here, which are very nice. I love that. But they are attached to the 3D gizmo. So, you know, I'll take it just because I have to. But rarely do I use it for any type of move or rotation or anything like that. I can understand where people come from. Kind of stitching all this stricter way down the road once we get there. But I need to be thinking about now how thick stuff needs to be and how stuff needs to be positioned. So like even for this rope, if I make it too thin or too flat against the armor, it just, depending on the scale that I print it at, right? That stuff just won't come through. So that's stuff that I need to consider now. But I think we'll be good for now. We'll keep going. We won't think about it any longer than we need to, though. I still use 4R7. Well, hey, upgrade it or buy the software. Because I assume if you're on 4R, if anybody ever says, and I do see this a lot, hey, I'm on ZBrush 4R7, I'm like, hey, buy the software, because I assume that you didn't buy it and you got it for that you just don't want to upgrade for some odd reason. Can you make how-to ZBrush polypaint? I think I've done some stuff in the past. I don't know if I've done an explicit how-to. Oh yeah, check out my how-to ZBrush series. There's a polypainting tutorial on there. If you're looking for a particular type of polypainting, like skin or some kind of particular texture, that would be a little bit more specific. But yeah, check out my how-to ZBrush series. I got some stuff in there. Love your work in tuts. Thank you. Thanks. I like my tuts too. Thank you though. I appreciate that. All right, so some more ropey. But I am from Cincinnati, Ohio. So I grew up in Indiana. I grew up in a cornfield. How do I want to do this? Okay, so I don't want to use this piece. What I'm gonna do I'm gonna do some like really tight threading now. So I just need one of these. Give me that. Okay. So essentially I'm just gonna, we might be able to do array mesh with this. It wouldn't be a bad idea. But I'll show you guys something. I don't use this very often. ZBrush, even rotating your camera. Whoops. Rotating your camera. Gosh, hold on. I can't see my keyboard. So I think the hotkey by default, it's been years, literal years since I've looked at this, but I think the hotkey by default for big fat tablet. USAC, it's been a while. How you doing? Welcome to the stream. Glad you could come join us. It is a bit of a steep price, to be fair. I believe in, you know, if you're going to use a tool that a team of people, a very small, close team of people that offer a lot of free content and are some of the best, I think, community of software developers and people in general on the internet, Pixelogic. If you're going to use their software, I think, personally, you should pay them for it. You should buy it. You can get it for really cheap. You can get it for like $200, and it is an official license. I think you can get it for $650. If you go over to r/ZBrush on Reddit, there is a post about it there. Or if you are interested, just send me a message and I'll send you a link to it after the stream. But I doubt that anybody is. Uh-oh. Let's check stream. My stream health is green. Oh no. Oh, yes. Yes, I know how to draw. Do I draw? No, I don't draw. I sculpt. I put all my eggs in one basket. I put all my eggs in one basket a while ago. No more time. No more time for drawing. Man, this is... I might want to do array mesh for this. So it's repeating across this curve, so it's going to be a little bit different. Again, let me know if you guys can hear me still. Let me see. Let me check the stream health over here. That's your name now. Try refreshing if actually the page array mesh, like I said. So come on down. We're gonna repeat a few times here, more than a few times. Let's turn that off, and we're gonna X offset, I think, right? Let's here, which will be on. Yeah, there we go. Cool, cool, cool. Okay, so we're getting there. I can't see. Back to X offset. I need years. Not very long. Repeat steps. So again, there's that question. That was the good one, though. That was the good version of the question. Let's try these. Oh, I might be able to. Maybe it's pivot. Maybe not. Oh, I think that just. Oh, that just changes the pivot position. You know what? I'll just manually adjust these, but we do have a nice rotation kind of going along, so it follows the. Let's do a little bit more offset and a little less. Try to get that a little bit tighter. I can always inflate these, but at the same time, okay, I think that's good. So from here, what I'll do is health is orange now. How about I think I know what the problem is, but I'll have to stop the stream. Give me 60 seconds and I'll be right back. We'll try to fix it real quick. Hopefully you are still streaming when I get back. Gotta lower my FPS because currently it's on 60 and I don't think we need. Ta-da! Okay, we're back and I see green. Go forward. Let me refresh my page too, just to make sure. And All right. So now, stream might have popped off. Okay, so we need to convert this to real geometry. Just at the bottom of your array mesh panel, make mesh. Pretty easy, pretty easy. Array mesh is very powerful. You can do some cool stuff. I could have replicated this across the surface and got exactly what we wanted by offsetting the pivot, but we did not. So that's fine. We can just do this and be just as good. So from here, we're gonna have to modify this just to kind of, obviously I have transparency on. We got to make it visible. See that it's pulling that way. I'm holding Alt when I'm doing this as well. So when I hold Alt, it pulls out along the, be a little bit more cool. So we got some nice repetitive detail in here. This is more just for show, less so for actual serving a purpose. As you can see here in our armor, we have a few of these, and they might, personally I don't think those are necessary to kind of tie that bamboo slat on there. These look more like they're there just for design purposes. But the entire purpose of the samurai armor, I think the design purpose behind it was to create something that would create fear in your enemies. So that's why the masks are designed in that way. I don't know if there's like some historical significance to the shapes and designs, like if there's like the Japanese god of thunder or something to that extent that this resembles, that could have created that kind of fear. But they are really cool. I think there's some really cool design language in there. But again, most stuff, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna want it to have some kind of reasoning behind it. I'm just very kind of gently using a smooth brush on here. And these are all pretty low poly. I could try to Z-remesh all of this, get a little bit lower. I love this about ZBrush. If you've ever had a lot of geometrical pieces that you remeshed, the polygroups that it assigns to them are kind of in this like beautiful Roy G. Biv color pattern. So I think the way ZBrush assigns polygroups is like along this order, going through a lot of these, and a lot of them look very similar, but they are in fact not. So I can, select each one of those individually. But yes, we will take this geometry and we will duplicate it a couple more times, just so that we can have a little bit more repeating texture and design up here. So the angle of all this is a little bit different for this bowed out piece, and it's going to be a little bit different on top of the chest here. So just a little bit of adjusting to make all this work. This end piece I would like to specifically move. Whoops. So just that, and cool. Let me grab this reference real quick. All right. So again, we're trying to bring that visual interest up towards the face. We want to think about these periods of rest, but we also need to start getting all these parts and pieces in there so that we can make sense of all of it. The quicker you get, I think, in my opinion, all your parts in this case, the quicker you can kind of see the character as a whole. So that's why I think that blocking out stage is so important for just kind of, if you're working on like a human character, for instance, just being able to figure out proportions very early is one of the most helpful things. And in this case, we're figuring out the proportions of detail, essentially. So the proportions of where high-res detail is going to lay on here. So some of this isn't like very detailed, and maybe we'll just leave it how it is. Maybe we'll add some more texture to the rope and some other stuff. But at the same time, I need to kind of start blocking it in and figuring out where it all needs to go. Or else we're going to be, you know, halfway through this and not have a concrete direction, which is not what we want. So the angle of this is a little frustrating to work with. So I'm gonna try to adjust it just by moving it back. All right. And again, I'm just using right now a very large move brush. If you need to turn down your Z sensitivity or just your Z intensity, sorry, go ahead and do so. I like to use the move brush for more gentle moves, but I'm sure you guys have seen people use the snake hook brush, a very large snake hook brush. You can turn up the, turn down the Z intensity if it's too strong, but it works like a very large move brush. It can be very useful for that. But for the most part, I'll just stick with the move brush and adjust it as I need to from there. So adjust its sensitivity, but rarely do I need to. Just kind of jump back and forth between those two. All right, so we're getting some high-res detail that is repetitive, so enough to kind of add some visual interest, but not enough of a sporadic kind of organic design to where it's kind of holding our eyes too much. We don't want to be staring at the bear's chest the entire time. We want the attention up here on the face, so we can start adding some detail to his helmet and maybe his face as well. All right. Just want to adjust these a little bit more, just to be a little bit more anal and figure it out, make it look more clean. Trying to duplicate that. It's not letting me. I have something masked up here. There we go. Oh, it looks like it's, man, come on. Unmask that. That should be good. Look at that. It's like pulling those up for some reason. Let's try to get a very clean mask. Pull down. Okay, now it's not doing it. All right. So a little bit more here. And these are perfectly even right now, of course, but we can add some changes to these to make them a little bit more organic instead of so, you know, so perfect and exactly the same. We don't want it to be that unorganic. I mean, we did use array mesh to repeat this, but at the same time, come on. All right. Let's let's turn our arms back on for a second. Last stream we were smart enough to create some nice little groups for us to work with. which have been very, very helpful for hiding and unhiding things. And we couldn't be doing the work as quickly as we are right now if we didn't do that. Organization's important, guys. Alright. So we can keep working on detailing some stuff out. Excuse me. I would like to look at the helmet next and think about some interesting stuff that we can do up there. But I like the direction that we're going in. I would also like to pay some very dear attention. Second. And, alright, cool. So let's look at this helmet. What do we want to incorporate into this? These horns here. These are huge. So I didn't make them quite that big, especially if I want to 3D print this. They're not gonna work at that size. They might, depending on what I do with them, but this is, I don't think I really like this design here, this kind of like ring. We could maybe try something out with the horns though to add some texture to them, something a little bit more visually interesting. I think that would be a good idea, as well as adding some detail to the hood and the helmet. I've been thinking about the mask, and I don't think that I want to do a mask for the character. I think I want his face to be visible. If I wanted to do a mask, then I would have just done like a human character, right? And a mask with the shape of his snout is going to be a little bit tough to fit on there. I mean, I would have to form it to that shape, which isn't impossible by any means, but still. Maybe we will. Let's work on the hood. Let's work on the helmet first, and then we can think about doing a mask. But I have a feeling, we'll see. I don't know. What do you guys think? Should we do a mask for the character, or I do like being able to see the character's face, but let me know what you guys think. So we can start off by, I do have some ears here because I did the character without armor first, and I just put some tiny little ears on him, but we can turn those off so they are kind of like smushed up under that helmet, which is how it would work for, you know, a human character as well. So I think that's fine. But in that one design, it has ears on the actual helmet, which I think is kind of interesting. But I don't want to make so many primary forms of shapes that it gets too busy. So and 1 second. All right, so let's start off with adding some visual interest to the front kind of visor portion, as well as the helmet. I'm just going to duplicate this so that I can work on a cloned piece. I want to try to add some bevel detail in here, just to kind of see what it's going to look like and see how ZBrush is going to treat these poly loops, see how friendly it's going to be. We might be able to do something interesting here. So I think maybe we could create some inward extrusions on the helmet to create a cool shape there. We might be able to carry that along this edge here as well. Bevel is going to be a little bit weird here. We won't be able to get it to go quite that far. So maybe we just stop it there. Let me see. So just to get a little more detail in here. So what I'm going to do is an extrusion poly loop and I want to do, where is it? Polyloop and polygroup, there it is, sorry. So now from here, I make sure that that line, that orange line there, is pointing along that edge loop that I want, and extruding that in. It's not gonna do it. Okay, so just turn it back on polyloop so we know what we're doing. So extrude that in, and just click on these, and it'll do the same operation at the same distance. And then I can crease all of these. So I'm gonna come to this edge, crease, edge loop complete, crease all through there, crease all through there, and now I'm gonna crease all of these edges as well. It's gonna be a little bit easier to use my mouse for some of these. So crease, 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 crease. Try to do this all from, try to do as much as you can from one angle. It gets a little tight in here, so you might have to like really zoom in just to make your selections possible. Can be a little frustrating to work with. All right, so we got some cool little stripey details we've got going on here. I think that's gonna add some visual interest, as well as let's try to do something similar on the horns. So again, I am just duplicating this piece, so I have a clone to work on, just in case if something absolutely horrible goes wrong, we have something that we can kind of go back to. So just bevel. I'm gonna do a different size bevel here, a little bit more thin. And now after I make that first one, I can just click and again, repeat, repeat, repeat. And we get this weird kind of notches where that is. Let's do our extrusion polyloops though and see if we can clean that up. So extrude polyloop, and we're just clicking to get that same little bit of distance in there. Cool. And now let's crease those edges and see what our shape is starting to kind of look like a little bit more. So find your edge, crease, edge loop complete, and get in there. Whoops. If you're having trouble, like if you accidentally so you're trying to click an edge and you keep accidentally clicking a face, it can be very, very annoying. A way that you can fix that though is you just hover over the face, hold the space bar, and click do nothing. The greatest operation ever, right? So now if you accidentally click a face, nothing is, do nothing's gonna happen, which can be very helpful. So I also like the idea of maybe not creasing these inner edge loops. So it has a bit of a curve in there. We can play with that as well to see what that's gonna look like. But yeah, we can keep going here. I think I like the direction this is heading. And if not, again, like I said, we created a duplicate of this, and we don't have to worry about undos or crashing. We can always just roll back to that. And I know I said this last time, I think. A lot of this can be pretty boring, but this is where the magic happens, I guess. I don't sound very confident about the magic, but it's true. It's true. This is where all the fun is, in the creating all the high-res design solutions here to kind of guide interest, and it's not easy, but I want to avoid us getting too noisy through here. So we got to keep that in mind. We got to keep a lot of stuff in mind as we go. That curve ain't gonna work. So let's do a little bit of a rotation here, see if we can correct that. A little bit too much. Looks like I'm just going to have to use my move brush and adjust this manually. So I want to keep this as smooth as I can. I think just messing with this, I ended up getting it a little off kilter. The rest of these edge loops look pretty straight though, so I'm happy about those. It's just that top one, a little off. And we'll correct it up here. Alright, I think that's good. Cool. So we have kind of a similar motif flowing down through here as these rings kind of bleed on to the helmet there. So now we can do something with the visor. I don't think I want to do any more striping patterns, but I would like to create kind of a bevel around here, similar to what we have on our armor all throughout here, so we can kind of have the that kind of design motif flow through the rest of this. So again, just duplicate that piece. Don't need the subdivision levels. You actually can't use the Z-modeler brush on anything with subdivs. So you're gonna have to step on down and delete those. So we can bevel that edge, and then once we have that, we can extrude that poly loop, and this time out. And what I'm going to do is mask. This should work. It should. You can use, the one great thing about ZModeler and ZBrush is that you can use all of your other ZBrush tools with ZModeler, which is a godsend. It's great. So I'm going to mask all that off, and now I extrude. That should be fine. Okay, so extrude that. Uh-oh. Make sure that this one is masked off properly. Same here. Okay. So a little bit of an extrusion there. The problem will happen though that it uncreases all of our edges. So I do want to recrease that inner edge and recrease that one, which already is, and then I think I'm gonna leave that to keep its rounded shape there, and then I can always come through with my move brush and backface masking if I would like to thicken that up a bit. Cool, cool, cool. All right, let's see here. Alright, it still looks like my stream health is popping in and out from green to red, so I apologize for that. I'll try to figure out what's going on before the next stream. Hopefully it's a pretty simple solution. I think my CBR might be a little bit too high, but it's going to severely degrade the resolution. I tried upping it for, I think like, this was a while ago, so I haven't had any problems with it yet, but that's the only thing that really comes to mind in terms of my stream settings. So I'll play with it, I'll figure it out. So for next stream, which hopefully will be tomorrow, or if not tomorrow, Thursday then. Try to get into a semi-regular case for being able to stream some stuff. But yeah, we're getting there slowly. That bevel is so small, it's almost unnoticeable from a distance read, but it does add, if you want to make like a mech look good, people say just bevel every edge, like bevel more, bevel, keep beveling. I think that's good. I don't think that's exactly true, but it's got some truth in it. So we can do some more stuff here. We have some really cool insert multi-mesh brushes inside of ZBrush. So some like insert multi-mesh mechanical brushes, so you can just like click I or hit it on your keyboard. So some like screws, bolts, machine parts, stuff like that. What I want is something flat and rounded, so I could just use a sphere. We can see what's in this brush at least first. So maybe something like that end piece, or something, maybe something like this, kind of like that. I think it's got a little bit more visual interest. We can do some cool stuff with some live booleans to create some depressions as well. So let's see here. Let's just do a single piece. Delete hidden. And these look, I think, too much like button snaps, so I'm not going to use these in particular, but maybe we can find something a little bit better. Let's look back at our brush here and try our, where was it? Not clothing, we'll just try the machine parts. So yeah, let's just do this. Insert primitive, boop, sphere. We might be able to do something interesting with making a negative here. So hide everything, turn that on as a start group, and turn this on as a subtraction group, and turn on live boolean. And do a quick rotation, 90 degrees, turn that back on, and get a little bit of an interesting depressed shape in the mesh there. So taking something like that and then taking our sphere here and moving that in, and then just like that. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do with the new Boolean system. I personally love it, but it's just very, very powerful. There's a lot of really cool stuff. So we'll try to resize that a little bit. I think, let's do, maybe something like that, just to create some visual interest. And then I think I want to move both of these out at the same time. So that's within that subtraction again, so it'll be interfered with that. So let's merge down. So we have these two pieces of geometry now. Let's turn off that group, and I will turn it back on here in just a sec. But first, let's look at come here, and I want to be able to turn all my armor back on so that I can see. And I can go ahead and turn on my bare face. Okay. So now I can just duplicate this across the mesh, and we can do it the same way we did last time, which is that control, click, and drag. We'll go a little bit farther in the distance. Whoops, just closed my browser. Didn't want that. Let's pop that back up. All right, here. So, like I said, we'll try to figure out the stream health stuff later, so I apologize for that again, but we'll get there, we'll get there. Okay, so looking at this helmet that I'm looking at, they don't have, if they have anything holding them on the outside in terms of like a screw or whatever you would call that. There's not much going on. I actually like that design a lot. I think that's very interesting. You can see some stripes here and some stripes in this helmet. So I was kind of playing off that, a little bit of a different design. I think we can also do some stuff with the hood here, kind of split it up and create these segments. I think that would be pretty interesting. These are pretty crazy though. I don't know if each one of those is like a singular, very small square segment repeated, just the way it's tied together. It could be similar to these, but kind of hard to tell without a back view. And a low-res photo makes it a little bit more difficult as well. But we'll play with that. We'll play with all this. Just take some time. So we'll move these into position. And adjust. So I'm just going to do a few of these on the front. So I'm just going to duplicate this over to the other side as soon as I'm done positioning it. So by using the transpose tool, I can click on a flat surface and it'll snap to that, and then I can just adjust and rotate or move in along that normal if I need to. Alright, so from here, mirror and weld, of course, our favorite operation. And let's go back to seeing what that looks like with the negative in place. So we got our hood piece, that as a negative subtraction, and these on top additively. Hide everything else. We're gonna get some weird stuff. There we go. Alright, so I will, if I want to be able to see this in my entire chain, I'll have to either organize it and move it, or I'm just going to have to Boolean it right away. I'm fine with creating a Boolean for it though, or just leaving it how it is. I would like to create a small Boolean just so that I can visualize it a little bit better though. For these end caps, so let's push these in a little bit more. And we want symmetry on, of course. All right. And again, same thing here. Symmetry, please. Push those in a little bit. All right, I think that's a pretty interesting shape that we got there. And if we can select the correct tool here. So take this, I'm going to subdivide it a few times. So you can see there, getting a lot more smooth deformation there on the surface. Here, I'm going to subdivide it up as well. Thank you, ZBrush, for the quick save. And after that, we want our spheres here. Subdivide those a couple times. And all I'm going to have to do, I'm actually going to turn off these spheres because I don't want to Boolean operate on those. So I'm just going to come into Boolean, make Boolean mesh. You know what? Better idea. Let's try it without subdivision levels. I want to see something So make Boolean mesh now. So this piece here. So you can see that the Boolean only changes the geometry around these particular points, but we might be able to just crease all of this and still have subdivision levels on it. So the creasing the creasing is going to have to be done manually, so it might be better to just take this piece. So let's just take this for now so we don't have to worry about it, and we can mess with it more later if we want to. So I still have that, I still have the geometry that made those pieces, so I'm not worried about if I want to go back, I can always grab those. So click, 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 click as I reposition this back into place. So I'm going to turn off that start group. No longer a start group. So now I just have an extra visor piece, which is the part that we don't want to get rid of. We have what is an old visor. I'm going to get rid of that. And here's the new one. And this, which I can turn off. So those I still have if I need to go back and make any changes. But there we go. Now we have that in position, and we can turn our bear back on, our bear boy, and take a look at this. So that was a lot of work just for a little bit of detail, but if you want it to be clean and if you want to do it right, then I think it's definitely worth the time, especially if you want to take even more time. And like I said, go through here and crease all of these edges manually. It really wouldn't take that long. So I could just go through here and start with an automatic kind of attempt to crease all these edges to get it perfectly round. It's going through here though, and it's being a little bit weird, so I would just have to come through and uncrease a lot of these edges. Not a huge deal, it's gonna take some time, but I think, like I said, I think it's worth it. If you wanna get the cleanest result, you're gonna have to put in that work. So like I said though, I am happy with the result that we have here, even though it doesn't have subdivision levels. You can see that it's all done at about 250K polys, but that's totally fine for what we got. Alright, let's take a look at this hood now, see what we can do. Alright. I'm going to turn on perspective real quick. Something I haven't done in a minute. Just try and look at this for a sec. You can use a flat color material. Come on, play nice. You can use a flat color material and put it on black to kind of see what your silhouette looks like. But for some reason, I don't know if this is for anybody else, but in ZBrush 4R8 P2, if you put it on all the way black, you get the red wax material. For some reason it jumps to that. I have no idea why that is the case, and if anybody knows what's going on there, let me know. But if I put it on almost black, it will be just fine. So just kind of looking at my silhouette, which I haven't done yet, from a side view becomes pretty apparent what kind of character we're dealing with here. Not human, obviously. Kind of get that bear profile from the side, I think, pretty well. From the front and back, though, obviously it's going to be a little bit harder to tell. Once we pose this is going to be something that we'll look at again. But, excuse me, just looking at the visor here, thinking about how we want to go forward with that shape. Is it readable from just a distance view silhouette? And I think the answer is no, because I don't like this shape. So a lot of the visors do a little bit of a smaller segment flipping up, which I think would be better in this case. I think this is just too long, so let's insert a poly loop. Poly loop, throw that in there. I'll leave the crease on for now, so what I'm going to do is Q mesh and Q mesh. And then of course I have to recrease these edges really quick. So crease, crease, and whoops, crease. Let's uncrease that edge real quick. Okay. And let's adjust the angle of this guy. So I'm using the transpose tool to kind of pull that in, tighten that. I don't want it to flare out quite as much. I don't like the, and I'm not a huge fan of that. I think this looks a little bit better. And that inner edge loop is going to cause either a concave or convex surface, depending on how we angle it. I want it to be more flat though, so I'm just going to try to be careful here and adjust them. You can see here that it's pretty easy to start getting that. I want to avoid that as much as possible. I actually, because these are creased, let's uncrease these. That'll help us out a lot in that shape, and that one as well. All right, yeah, that's gonna be a lot better. It's gonna give us a lot more of a smooth transition there. Okay. Try to get rid of that lip. I don't want that to happen though. If I need to, so if you're in a situation where you're trying to create something that goes from a soft kind of transitional surface, let's say like the helmet here, speaking of which, let's turn that off. We want our stripies. If you're trying to create something that's going from a hard surface transition to a soft surface, it can be very difficult to do that on a singular mesh. An example of that would be kind of what you just saw here. So let's step back a little bit. So see how it's going from a creased area to an uncreased area, and it creates this really tight pull on the geometry. It's going to be a lot easier to do that transition on something that's not low poly like this, just because you have more control over the surface, more polys to work with. But my recommendation for doing something like that is to actually split it up into two separate parts. So instead of me extruding not the visor, but the hood off of the back of this helmet, it's going to be a lot easier for me to control stuff if I kind of keep it as a separate piece, at least for the time being, and then I can merge them together later down the road. I can also add a little bit of the detail, this detail on the hood back here to indicate that it's connected to the helmet. But I don't know how necessary that'll be. I want to change the angle of this a little bit. I'm just trying to get that swept back angle. One vert at a time, right? Old school. That's what box modeling is all about. So we have a pretty straight line there. I think I'm happy with that. I wanted to get a little bit of a backwards kind of rising angle so that when you look at it from the back, it looks like it wraps around and then dips down a little bit. Thinking about it from multiple viewing angles, very important. And this inner edge, I don't think needs to be creased either. I'm just going to get rid of it because I think it's just going to cause more problems for us. As well as that edge there. And let's see here. I think I need to shorten that a little bit more. Yeah, I kind of just want these to be a little bit smaller. So one thing you can do with your transpose tool is you can snap from vertice to vertice, just like that. And that transpose line is perfectly aligned along that edge now. And now I can move perfectly along that. So very, very helpful. And I'll rotate out. So a little bit shorter, a little bit more sticky outy. But let's play with this hood a little bit more. Let's add some details on there. I would also like to do something around where these horns are. Let me turn these ears off. Got a lot of extra parts. Let me save this. So I'm saving this as a 1ZTool file, and then what I'm gonna do is delete all the stuff that I said we can kind of roll back to later. Just because when I turn stuff on and off, it's gonna create more problems for me. And it's gonna be a lot easier for me to hide, unhide if I do it this way. So delete that. I still want those. I'm gonna move those all the way to the top because I might need them. I also want those spheres, so real quick, let me find those. Duplicate, turn off, all the way up. Okay, cool. Under here for the hammer, if you guys haven't seen the hammer yet, I can show that off real quick. I don't think I have any extra geometry here. I don't. Okay, yeah, so that's our hammer. I made this off a stream a while ago. Maybe we can do something similar like this in another stream, but yeah, we'll, it didn't take that long. This isn't like crazy detailed, or it didn't take a ton of time to do really, so I wouldn't feel bad doing something similar in another stream. Alright, so auto claps back on. Now it's going to be a lot easier to turn all these groups on at once. That's fun. Maybe we can use that for our mask if we are to do something like that. Alright, hood. Let's look at this. So, in our reference, we have this similar kind of rope threading through those pieces. So I think we can do something just like that. Won't be too hard. Not quite this dense, but more akin to this. And after that, we'll see where we can go. So it looks like all the hoods that I'm seeing are split, much like this. More like this. So instead of splitting this geometry, I'm gonna do something a little bit different. I'm trying to think though how okay, I think I know what I want to do. So I'm gonna duplicate this hood. We are going to take this geometry here, delete hidden, Z modeler, and we're gonna do a close holes operation, a bridge operation. Give him a Loki helmet from Thor. I just watched Thor Ragnarok last night. It was really funny. It was great. No, we don't want to do a precise replica of the Loki helmet. Maybe we can use that as a reference, though, for some other stuff. I think we're a little too far trying to go with this more samurai motif to kind of switch it up now and get into that Thor realm, but let's play with this some more. So delete that geometry there. Again, same operation, bridge. So I'm just separating these, and that's because I'm going to have a little bit of different geometry. Bridge, please. Okay. Delete, edge loop, boom, and then insert, poly loop, round that out. Crease, edge loop, boom. All right. Now we can start adding some more layers to this, so get that layered padding. So the way I'm going to do that is insert some poly loops across here. Yes, the Thor movie was great. I really enjoyed it. My favorite character was the rock dude, the rock monster, who supposedly is played by the director of the movie, which is awesome. So I don't think we'll actually split the geometry. What I think we'll do is similar to here, where it looks like it's split, but it's just beveled. I think that'll be a little bit easier to work with. It's beveled and then extruded in, so bevel, bevel, bevel. So that gives us 4 slices. Extrusion, poly loop in, and let's go, that looks a little bit better. Alright, so same thing here all the way through, and of course we got to crease our edges. But before we do that, let's bevel here. Get a really thin bevel. This is pretty similar to what I did on that front piece. And then after this, I'll crease it. And those bevels are creating tight geometry there already, even when I apply that dynamic smooth subdivision. So it does a pretty good job there with that. But I'm going to actually shift all of these to kind of give it that layering effect. So I am going to want to crease these still. So let's see here. In the way of itself. That's all right. I think we're getting a healthy amount of lag now on this piece, now that we're getting up there in the poly count. That's when you know it's starting to get good. Is that all of them? Did we miss any? Let's see here. Get these edges. Beveled, beveled. I think that's all of them. Very good. Alright, and now for the kind of cascading layering effect. We might have to reposition that angle there. You know what? Idea. Instead of these fanned out pieces, let's give like, actually delete that. Adjust where these horns attach. Maybe they attach a little higher. So I think that would be, well, maybe not. I don't know, we can play with it. Let's stick with what we got though. Stick with this. So I'm going to carefully run through here with my mask lasso. Get all these pieces. All right. Quick save. Whew, thought we were just about to crash. All right, so pulling it out and then pulling it up. I'm gonna get this layering effect. Possible better idea if we scale this up uniformly. And then scale in a little bit, just to line those up. I think we can still get that cascading effect without messing up the geometry on the front too much. So a little bit of tweaking there. I think that's cool. Let's do it to the next layer. Alright, so again, mask lasso. There's a lot of masking tools in here. I knew one guy who was obsessed with the mask curve tool, which is also really good. I just prefer the mask lasso just because I feel like it's a little bit faster and gives you a little bit more freedom to make whatever selection you want to make. There's our problem. Alright, so same thing, scale up, and turn off symmetry. We'll scale without symmetry just so it doesn't mess up our center line there, which can be pretty annoying. Scaled a little bit too much, so scale, 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 pull in. All right, I think this is working out pretty well. It's a little bit stretched there. I think that's fine. I should have been polygrouping these as I went. Now I want to adjust this one. It's going to be a little bit harder to select these. So let me polygroup this real quick. So I'm just trying to get a really clean shape. And these polygroups are going to help a lot. Really zoom in here. This is the fun stuff, right? Careful not to select polys on the opposite side of the symmetry plane. Boop. Alright, so that selection wasn't quite as clean as we wanted. Let's do this. I want to get that shape, get that stair step there. Ooh, what do we got here? Make sure these are unmasked. There we go. Okay, cool. And let's do this last layer at the bottom. That was already masked. ZBrush can be a little bit weird when you're trying to mask edges like that. If you try to mask something that you already have masked, it'll think you're trying to flip your mask or turn it off or clear it, or it'll essentially do an operation that you don't want. Not a fan. All right. It looked like that was unmasked, so let's fix that. So mask please. Got a little confused there because we had symmetry off, so it messed with it a little bit. Just to check, symmetry is still messed up. Let's do this. I think it's worth just the 5 seconds to redo that. There. I can see in here now that these are masked off a little bit, so I do want to make sure that these are masked completely. I do not want any of that to come with the geometry here. So that is almost what I'm looking for. I'm going to change the angle here so that I make sure that my selection is a little bit more precise on the opposite side. So there are vertices on the other side here, and if I end up selecting some of those, we can mess some stuff up. So there we go. Perfect selection. All right, so turn off X symmetry, scale up, push in, scale in with our move transpose tool. Get that nice stair step there. Try to align that a little bit better from the front view. Got that really clean stair stepping going on. I think that looks a million times better. Awesome. And now I can go back through if I don't like the strange creases that I'm getting through here with this geometry. We might be able to do some crease edge loop complete and just hold Alt and click it to uncrease it, and we can see what that interaction looks like. So it gives it a little bit of a cleaner transition. I am fine with the hard transition that it has right now, so let's leave it like that. Cool. The helmet's starting to really come together. Let's do a quick save, and let's see how we're doing on time. Okay, I'm going to spend a little bit here on the helmet for a little bit longer, and then duck on out of here once I'm finished. So let me grab my reference back up. How is this helmet going to stay on Mr. Bear's head, right? We need to have something kind of wrapping around. So if you look here at the reference, they would typically attach the mask to the helmet through the rope, and then they would have kind of a thick piece of rope going around the chin to kind of help hold that on as well. So if we do end up doing a mask, we'll have to think about that connection point as well. And I think that's very pixelated, but I think that's a pretty cool interaction there. So let's give a little bit of stuff here. All these guys are wearing protective neck gear. just with the shape of this and with the period of rest that I would like to create in this area, I'm not sure. Time being, we'll hold off. So let's do a little chin strap, and then go from there. So I'm just gonna duplicate that piece. It doesn't really matter what we use, but just enough that I can get a curved tube started, a little bit bigger. Get a curved tube piece started, select, delete hidden, and now I can kind of work with this to create that shape. I'm simply going to pull it across the X symmetry plane and then do a mirror and weld. You might get some weird stuff, but you can adjust it back across the plane. And that should fix it. Just keep mirror and welding. All right. Pull that up into the helmet. Let's pull it back as well. Just add a little bit of rotation. And I've been thinking about the rope for all of these pieces. I do have a pretty nice rope brush. If I can click the right key on my keyboard. I have a rope brush down here that I made a good while ago. And I was thinking about using this for some stuff on this character. I don't know. I do like this brush a lot though. Just by smoothing it, you can get some pretty cool shapes in there. I do like that brush a lot. I might use it here. I might just kind of add some manual texture on there. There's some pretty different designs in the types of threading for the rope that we see throughout these. This is kind of tough to, it's kind of tough to tell what's going on here. I kind of like this though, this kind of old school type of threading. I can look up some references, some higher resolution references of something like this. It's like almost like tri-braided. I don't know what kind of braid that is, but like I said, I can look up some more references. But I do just want to block this out for the time being and kind of iterate on it later down the road. So just a low-res Z-mesh on this piece should give us a nice basic shape. So that's pretty good. Let's make sure that our symmetry plane is on. That's very, very thick in polygon count. So delete edge loop. We'll get rid of like 2/3 of these. We're not going to need them. Help clean up the shape as well. And just kind of adjust this to make it a little bit more uniform. Needs to look like it's taut against his chin, so for that it would have to be straight, a little bit more straight than what I had it at. I'm just gonna smooth this out and see if I can, well, instead of that, let's do this. Let's de-inflate. But first, we're kind of losing our cylindrical shape here. That's why it's pretty much always better to work with primitives, just so that you can get a very clean shape. And there's too many vertical edge loops on this, flowing with the shape. Really, I think all you need is 6. If I try to delete some of those, though, I'm probably gonna get some bad things to happen. I can try. I might be able to delete a couple, but for the most part, just the way that this is capped, well, you know what? Screw it. Delete the cap and delete the edges that we don't need. Hey, there we go. That works really well. So what are we at right now? 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 6 to 8 is fine. I can recap that real quick. I could just do a close holes operation here, which is probably fine, but what I would prefer to do is just get a nice clean bridge to bridge. Whoa, freak out bridge. So we got some quad closing on that. You could also, you could try to create some edge loops in here if you need to. I'm fine with just the way that it is right now. Ooh, and I'll just crease these edges here. So crease, can try an edge loop complete. It's gonna freak out. Just the edge flow is not correct there. All right, cool, cool, cool. Well, my move brush, if it would work. Get that into place a little bit better. And just like that, we kind of manually placed a piece and retoped it really, really fast. So we got a little bit of a chin strap going on, and I don't know, I kind of liked the idea of maybe doing a little bit more bear-shaped attachment here. Let's duplicate, move into position. I want to have them kind of coming out of the visor a little bit. And let's think about how we want to do this and how clean we want to keep it. Let's do an insert poly loop. Let's try to keep this, let's try to keep the hard surface stuff going here. Let's see what we can do. Ooh, wait, let's not crease those. There we go. Let's make these a bit sharper. So the way we're going to do that is not with creasing, but with beveling. So remember that a crease is essentially just a representation of, you know, multiple poly loops that are very close together. So that's essentially what that's being interpreted as. So you can manually create the same thing by creating bevels, kind of like what we're doing here. And we can make this a little bit shorter. I do have some bear ears already made, but this is supposed to be, you know, armor made to look like bear ears. Trying to look at it in dynamic smooth as well as just the hard surface polys. I'm getting there. Slowly but surely. A lot of fine-tune adjusting here. I don't know. I feel like if I'm going to do this, I need them to be a lot larger. I think I just like the silhouette shape that I get from the fans, so I don't want to work too much more on those. This plus the horns, I think just these ears are starting to look more fawnish. So unless I do something, I don't know, a little bit more drastic, I'm not gonna like these. Yeah, I think we'll just probably stick with the fans. I'll give it a minute more though. I'm trying to kind of like zoom out and blur my eyes a little bit. Yeah, I think I just like the silhouette that I get from these quite a bit more. So let's just delete those and stick with this, and we can move forward. Try not to waste too much time on stuff that we don't like. But I think it's good to still, you know, just because it doesn't seem to be working, try to push it a little bit further, which is kind of why I always say that I like to push stuff farther than I think it should go, just to see how far I can push it till it breaks. And then you end up discovering how far you can kind of push a form. Just trying to even these out a wee bit, but I think that's probably a good stopping point for this time around. We got a lot of new detail on here, some cool stuff with the helmet as well. We did some cool live Boolean stuff and array mesh. That's always fun. Nice to check out some of the newer tools for 4R8. So I think with that, I'm gonna save this guy. But yeah, I think that's where we'll cut it. Oh, we got our recovered tool, so save that. And like I said, I'm gonna try to jump on tomorrow. What I would like to do in the next stream, it's either tomorrow or Thursday for sure. But what I would like to do for the next stream is take a look at the feet and think about pushing those a little bit further. If I have time off of stream, I'll probably do that as well and start thinking about that stuff. Start looking at the rest of the armor, playing with the helmet more, start thinking about the rope. There's a lot of stuff to do for this. Asking questions, talking about Thor, and I'll see you guys in the next stream. So, later.